In today's video, we will be reviewing how to solve quadratic equations. The very first method I want to review with you guys is solving this quadratic equation by factoring. So remember, the very first step is to set this equation equal to 0. So let's move both of these two terms to the left side of the equal sign by doing opposite operation. So let's move both of them at the same time. Opposite of minus 9x is plus 9x. Opposite of minus 4 is plus 4. And don't forget, what you do on one side, you do to the other side. So let's simplify. Bring down your x squared. Negative 3x plus 9x is 6x. 4 plus 4 is 8. Okay, so we have our equation equal to 0. And remember, we are setting this equal to 0 because we are trying to find the x-intercepts. And every time you have a x-intercept, the y value is always 0. That's the purpose of us setting it equal to 0. That's the reason behind it. So very first step was to set it equal to 0. Step number 2 is to find the GCF if it has one. So let's check. Our first term is x squared. Second term is 6x. Third term is 8. They do not have a like term. So we're going to skip to step 3. Step 3 is to start factoring. So let's start factoring. This times this should multiply to give me x squared. So of course that's x and x. This times this should multiply to give me 8. But also add up to give me the middle term. So all the factors of 8 are 1, 8, 2, 4. And remember, they should add up to give me the middle term. The middle term is 6. So we're going to go with 2 and 4. And we want a positive 6. So of course it's positive, positive. So let's check it. 2 times positive 4 is positive 8. Therefore we are correct. Now we have our two factors. The last step is to set the factors equal to 0 and solve. So set factors equal to 0 and solve them. Our very first factor is x plus 2. Our second factor is x plus 4. So now let's solve them using opposite operation. So our first root happens at x equals negative 2. And our second root happens at negative 4. So if you want a visual of what we just did, we just found the x-intercepts. One's at negative 2. The second one's at negative 4. And to get a more clear picture of our graph, we can look at this part of the problem where we set it equal to 0. The leading coefficient is positive 1. Therefore, you know your graph is concave up. So the graph looks something like this. And these are the x-intercepts we just found. So that's what we mean by solving the quadratic equation. The second method I want to review with you guys is completing the square. So the very first step for completing the square is to make sure you have your ax squared and bx terms on the left side of the equal sign. And make sure you have your c on the right side of the equal sign. So we have to move the minus 9x to the left side. So we have to do the opposite, which is plus 9x on both sides. And let's simplify. X squared plus 6x plus 4 equals negative 4. Now let's worry about moving this c over to the right side. So to move that positive 4 to the right, we do the opposite, which is minus 4. Those cancel out. Don't forget to leave the blank spot wherever you canceled out the 4. Okay, now let's fill in that blank spot. And don't forget, to fill in the blank spot, we fill it in with b divided by 2 quantity squared. And remember, you do this every single time. So the b in our problem is 6. So let's fill it in. Let's substitute. 6 divided by 2 is 3. And 3 squared equals 9. So we are going to fill in our blank spot with a plus 9. And don't forget, what you do on one side, you have to do to the other side. So let's simplify on our right side. Negative 8 plus 9 is positive 1. Let's bring down the left side. And now let's factor out the left side. So let's factor out the left side. You do the following. This term times this term should multiply to give me x squared. And of course, that is x and x. This times this should multiply to give me 9, but also add up to give me 3. So factors of 9 are 1, 9, 3, 3. So of course, it's going to be 3, 3. So that 3 and that 3 should add up to give me positive 6. So of course, positive, positive. And this should multiply to give me a positive 9. So let's check. 3 times positive 3 is positive 9. Therefore, we are correct. Now that we have the correct factors, and remember, you should always get the same factors every single time. That's the purpose of completing the square. Because as you remember, the sides of a square are always congruent. So therefore, you should always get the two factors that are the same. So let's continue solving for x. So let's rewrite our equation. And now let's solve for x. So to get rid of the squared, you square root both sides because they are inverse operations. Bring down your x plus 3 equals the square root of positive 1 is plus or minus 1. And here's the reason why square root of 1 is plus or minus 1. 1 times 1 is 1. And also negative 1 times negative 1 equals 1. That's why the square root of 1 is plus or minus 1. So the last step is to subtract 3 on both sides. Simplify, and you are done. So the first x value will be negative 3 plus 1. The second one will be x equals negative 3 minus 1. So I basically did this with a positive, one with a minus. So negative 3 plus 1 is negative 2. That's our first root. And our second root is negative 3 minus 1, which is negative 4. So remember, it was the exact same problem we did earlier, just a different method by completing the square. And if you want another graph, same thing. First root is at negative 2. Second one is at negative 4. Your leading coefficient is 1, positive 1, so it's concave up. And those are our two roots. The final step is to solve the quadratic equation using the quadratic formula. So the quadratic formula is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. The very first step is to set our equation equal to 0. So let's start. Opposite of minus 9x is plus 9x. Do it on both sides. Opposite of minus 4 is plus 4. Do it on both sides. Those equal 0. Bring down your x squared. Negative 3x plus 9x is 6x. 4 plus 4 is 8. Step number 2 is to identify your a, your b, and your c. So remember, you get those from the standard form for quadratic equations, and that is ax squared plus bx plus c. So the a value is 1, the b value is 6, and the c value is 8. A equals 1, b equals 6, c equals 8. Step number 3, plug it into the formula. So the formula again is x equals, I'm looking at this over here. So the formula needs a negative and then a b. So our b is 6 plus or minus the square root, and then b squared, or b is 6 minus 4 times a times c. So our a value is 1, our c value is 8, all divided by 2a, and your a is 1. All you got to do now is simplify. Negative 1 times 6 is negative 6. Bring down the plus or minus. Break down the square root. 6 squared is 36. And then these three numbers will get multiplied together. So negative 4 times 1 times 8. Negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. When you multiply that by 8, you get negative 32. And then it's all divided by 2 times 1, which is 2. Let's keep simplifying. So our discriminant. The discriminant is the number inside the square root. So let's simplify that. 36 minus 32 is 4. And you bring the 2 down. So remember, our discriminant is 4. If the discriminant is positive, in other words, greater than 0, that means we have 2 real solutions. If our discriminant is equal to 0, we have 1 real solution. If our discriminant is less than 0, in other words, negative, we have no real solutions. So in our case, our discriminant is 4, which is greater than 0, so we're going to have 2 real solutions. So let's keep simplifying, and we are going to solve our solutions. So let's simplify. X equals negative 6 plus or minus. The square root of 4 is 2, so you bring down a 2, all divided by 2. So let's break that up, one with a plus, one with a minus, and we will be done. Let's simplify even further. Negative 6 plus 2 equals negative 4, divided by 2. That gives us our first root of negative 2. On the right side, negative 6 minus 2 is negative 8, divided by 2 equals negative 4. So for all three problems, we got the exact same answer. Just to show you that all different methods work. So this is the end of your review for quadratic equations. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe on Palomo TV on YouTube.